Hello, everyone. So today I wanted to talk to you about why not to become a software developer. And as you can probably tell, that's sort of a joke. Um, so my name is Nils Lockean. I'm from Sweden, and I love climbing. That's me in the picture there, with my coworker and best friend Hank behind me, and that's actually my wife way back in the background. We took that picture last September when we had a really good day together. Um, so when I'm not climbing myself or teaching other people how to climb or stay safe on the rock, um, my main job is a senior software developer at a company called Uribe Text Help. Um, some of you might have heard about Text Help before, but I doubt you've heard about Uribe, and I'll come back to that later. Um, so what you'll learn today is my 5 top reasons not to become a software developer. No, not a game developer specifically, but what's called a software developer. And honestly, it's very similar when it comes to developing either a game or some other type of software. So I hope to share some or to debunk some myths that you might have heard of what it's like working in software development. Um, I'll share some stories that have happened to me and what I've learned from those stories. And at the end, we'll have time for some questions. So I'll just dive right into the first reason not to become a software developer, and that's if you hate learning cool stuff. So being a software developer means constantly learning new things. And I don't mean like studying, I mean learning and using brand new technologies right as they come to life. And that continuous learning all the time keeps my job very exciting and makes sure that I'm very rarely bored at work. So I'm going to take you back in time now to when I was 18 years old, living in the south of Sweden. And my dream job at the time was actually to be a photographer. But I recently just back then discovered that I could actually build websites as well. I was having a lot of fun with this drag and drop builder tool that let me build websites for my friends and family. And I'd only just landed my first paid website project where a family friend needed a website for his small business that I was making. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife and soon mother of my first child, she just happened to be working at a company called Uribe in the south of Sweden. And nowadays, Uribe is a part of Text Help, and that's essentially how I came to be here in Sweden talking to you a lot with the Text Help t-shirt on. Is not really relevant to the story, but anyhow, Uribe was a software development company in Sweden, and they had these two apps that were very, very popular. And back then, they only worked on Windows and Mac. Chromebooks were very, very new. And Stabarex and Spellwrite, as they're called, they didn't work online. And schools wanted to start using Chromebooks and Google Docs. And they needed someone to make these apps work uh, on the web in Google Docs. And I mean, I didn't know all there is to know about web development, but I thought, hey, Google Docs is a website. So maybe I can learn whatever I need to learn to get the job done. Um, and so luckily, Uribe saw that I was very eager to learn. And they basically just gave me a book about a programming language called JavaScript, um, and told me, this is the project, go learn. Uh, and that coincidence is that was sort of the first step that led me on the path that ended up here today with me talking to you up from Sweden. Um, so I guess what I want to say with that is that if something sounds fun, there's no need to there's no need to not just give it a go. Like there will always be people telling you do this and do that, but you telling yourself what to do, that motivation is the most powerful thing in the world. And if you spend your time doing things that you enjoy, other people will also enjoy working with you. And that turns into this infinite loop of happiness where you're happy at work and you make other people happy at work and they give you a promotion and then it just comes back and goes. So that's my first tip when it comes to software development. Find something that you think sounds fun and just give it a go. Now, the next reason not to be a software developer is if you think it's just all ones and zeros. So development has this, or many people have this picture of developers being these people who just want to spend time in front of the computers, looking at code, just spending time in the dark in front of a screen. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, some people just know what they want to do for a living. To some people, that's very, very easy to just know, hey, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But for most of us, that's not really the case. It's a journey. It's not just deciding what you want to do and going with it. And as I mentioned before, I loved photography when I got started. And I was taking a lot of pictures for people and their weddings and what have you. But I was also getting better at making websites. And at the time, I really enjoyed graphic design as well. So I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed with these three different jobs. And I just started thinking about what can I do with this? And I realized that a company that needs a website, they often need a logo as well, and maybe pictures of their products and their staff. So all of a sudden, instead of having these three different jobs, I realized I could just bundle them together and provide something that other web developers maybe couldn't. And that made me stand out a bit. And now with time, you tend to focus on the things that bring yourself the most value and the most value to the people you work with. And these days, I don't do that much photography or graphic design, but having that in my rucksack, that gives me a bigger say in how our textile products today look and feel. And that makes my job as a developer way more interesting. And I'll come back to that when I talk about reason 4 in a minute. So enjoying many different things, that can give you opportunities that you never saw coming if you didn't just go with it and try what you think is fun. Now, reason number 3 to not become a software developer, that's if you don't want to make the world a better place. But if you do want to make the world a better place, think about this. One of the coolest things about being a developer is that software products, especially in gaming and accessibility, which is what I'm working with, that has the potential of reaching millions of users all over the world very quickly. So I mentioned earlier on this applications called Spellwrite that I helped making early on. Like fast forward a few years, or fast forward until yesterday when I took the screenshot, that now has 31 million users or installations. 31 million, that's almost 3 times as many people that live in Sweden, where I'm from. To me, that's just mind-boggling to think that something that I helped making has reached that many people. And Spellwright is an application that specifically helps people with dyslexia. And for those of you who haven't heard about dyslexia before, that's when someone's brain finds it a bit tricky to read and spell, even though they're really smart and they're trying really hard. And I met this girl at an event that we did a few years back, who has dyslexia, and she told me that Spellwright helped her study so that she could achieve her dream job of being a doctor. Uh, and to me, like, that's just wow. That sticks with you, because honestly, no matter what you end up doing, you'll have bad days. That's just life in general. But knowing that what you do makes someone else's life a bit easier, that will make the bad days less bad and the good days much better. So, want to see some code? I can't see you on screen, but I imagine you're nodding right now. So I'll tell you a story about a slip up I made a few years ago. So back to these applications that I mentioned. They're both spell checkers, which means that if you've spelled something wrong, Stavarex and Spellwright can help you spell it right, thus the name. And as you can see, they're almost identical. They look the same. The only difference is the name and the language. So Stavarex is for Swedish and Spellwright is for English. And we wanted to write the code in a way that we could reuse it between the two. And as I mentioned, this was used by a lot of schools in Sweden, so that we had thousands of daily users. And the code was written like this. And we had this magic thing here that we decided to call P, and that had the value of either 1 or 0. And if we set that to 0, the application would become Stavarex. And if we set it to 1, it will become Spellwright. So that made it very easy for us to develop quickly. But it also had some drawbacks. So one day we wanted to make an update to both Stavarex and Spellwright. And that meant me going into the code, fixing the bug that we needed to fix, and then clicking the publish button to publish Spellwright. And then I copied the code, pasted it into Stavarex, and then I clicked the publish button to publish Stavarex. Now, what do you think happened? Exactly. The next day, I come into the office, I fire up my browser to see if the new version was live. I click the Stavarex icon, and there's Spellwright. Uh-oh. So what do you think? What do you think I did? Did I panic? Did I cry? Did I get fired? No. I just fixed a mistake. Like, even though that day some users might have opened their Stavarex and expected something to be in Swedish and it was in English, mistakes happen, and it's an excellent way to learn. So I fixed the mistake, I pressed the button again, and all of a sudden, it's gone. And that's so true in life in general. It's okay to make mistakes. It happens all the time. And as long as you learn from it, it's a big win. Mistakes are fixable, especially when it comes to software development. And just as a side note, like, if you can express something in computer code, I guarantee you that a computer will do a very good job at doing that thing compared to a human being. I have this colleague called Matt. I don't think Matt is gonna watch this back, but if you do, hello, Matt. And he works with something called test automation, which basically means that he can write code installs Starburex, and makes sure that the language is correct and that the title is correct and it works as expected before it goes live. So that even if I make a mistake again that I made back there, his code can catch that mistake and alert us so that we don't publish it to the public. So it's basically like writing a tiny robot inside of a computer that just pretends to be a user. And to me, that's just so cool. Like if I could learn what he does, wow. Yeah, I think I'm going to learn that someday. So reason number 4 to not become a software developer is if you really hate freedom. So some companies really want you to be in a specific place and work from there. But others, like TextHelp and many other software companies, they let you work from anywhere in the world. So I'll share a map of Europe with you now. And I'll zoom in on Sweden. I just wanted to show you these green pins, if you can see them. These are places where I've worked from, or actually where I've lived for at least a year since I started working for Oribi way back in the day. So I've had the opportunity to move around and just be in different places and find out where I want to be. And if we zoom out a bit, or just go down here to these orange pins, these are where our current offices are. So I live right there by the green pin. And if I want to work from Denmark tomorrow, there's nothing stopping me. I could just pop over to Denmark, hang out with my Danish colleagues in Copenhagen, and then go back to the Malmo office if I want to do that, and then go back home. And if I zoom out even more, you'll start to see some blue pins. One over there in the UK in York, and one up there on the Isle of Mull. These are places where I've worked for maybe a day or two or up to a week in the past year. When I've been on a trip, I might stay a couple of extra days, bring my laptop, work from there. I can zoom out even more. There's one in the north of Italy where I went on a climbing trip this past summer, and the same down there in Spain. As long as I bring my laptop, I can work from pretty much anywhere in the world. And that's one of the absolute best things about being a developer, in my opinion. So when you think about what you want to do, don't just think about what you want to do, but think about where you want to do it and who you want to be with. So as I mentioned, it's not always easy trying to figure out what you want to do for a living. And if ever I've had doubts about that, I just ask myself the question, where do I want to be? And who do I want to be spending my time with? So if I find myself wanting to wear a suit and hang out in a courtroom all day, that might mean that I want to be a lawyer. But software development gives me a lot of freedom and has an amazing community to hang around in. And now I'll go to the final reason to not become a software developer, and that's if you don't like games. So being a developer means constantly solving puzzles. And even if I don't work in game development specifically, I do love playing games with my friends. I enjoy playing video games. I love solving puzzles. And fixing a bug or developing some new feature or a game is a lot like solving puzzles. So I want to show you a thing called LexiFlow quickly. This is the most recent application that we've made. And LexiFlow, it pops up as a few extra icons in your browser. And Lexiflow has this feature called word prediction. And I thought instead of me explaining to you what that is, if you don't know already, I just let Lexiflow tell you.
Word prediction. Suggesting words as you type. Word prediction is a cool tool that suggests words as you type, making writing faster and easier. It's like having a helpful friend who knows what you want to say next. This helps you finish homework quicker and improve your spelling. It also boosts accessibility, making it easier for everyone, especially those who find writing tough, to express their ideas.
So that's what word prediction is. And if I just go ahead and enable that feature, you'll see a window popping up right there. So I just start writing something. This is what word, and you see that it starts to predict what I'm trying to write. So I can click on prediction, and there it goes. Now, as we were developing this word prediction feature and creating this wee window here, we realized that some people might find that annoying that the window follows you around. So we made sure that you can just drag it off to the side and it stays there as you write. And that's all good. But now what if I want to bring it back so it keeps following me again? And that's where the puzzle appeared, because there was no clear answer to that question. So I had to sit down and start treating that as a puzzle. So I thought maybe I can add a button that you can click to make it follow this carrot around. It's called a carrot, not carrot, but carrot. That doesn't really matter, but it's what it's called. So I started thinking, okay, how can I solve that problem as if it were a puzzle? And I realized that I could add a button maybe that you could click, but then what would the icon be? And so I had to throw that puzzle piece away or put it somewhere else. And then I realized since I've already dragged the window away, then it makes sense to me that I just drag it back, doesn't it? But then how will the user know when what back is? When have you dragged it far enough? So I had to add all these pieces together to make sure that when you start dragging the window, it becomes a bit see-through. And then as you approach the carrot that's now big and green, you start to get some feedback that, oh, okay, I'm in the right place. And then I drop it, and there you go. And puzzle solved. And this is a feature that's used by many people every day. And just thinking a bit outside the box as if you're solving a puzzle at work every day is just so much fun. Because that means that something that you've done, just an idea you've had, might have a big impact on someone else's daily life. And to me, that's just so cool. It doesn't matter if you're trying to solve a puzzle in The Legend of Zelda, or if you're trying to figure out how to make this browser thing more accessible. You will be rewarded by just thinking outside the box. So let's just recap. If you do like learning cool stuff, and if you do enjoy doing different things, and if you do want to make the world a better place, and if you do like freedom, and if you do like games, then software development might be for you. Just a thought. And if you thought that Lexiflow looked cool, then there's a very similar thing that I encourage you to try called Read and Write. It's basically the same thing, but Lexiflow is for Sweden, where I am, and Read and Write is made for the UK, where you are. So teachers, I encourage you to just go to the Chrome web store, install Read and Write, have a play around with it, click the Add to Chrome button, see what you think. It might be a very, very helpful tool for basically anyone. So We'll do the questions after we stop recording. So if I can leave you with one thing, is this. And this also means don't get too good at things you don't like doing, but do what you enjoy, and you will be great at your job and happy doing it. As I said, I'm Nils Lockean. That's my email if you want to get in touch. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And hopefully you've learned something today. And back to you, David.